So I've been saying for a few years now that Mongoose is making a comeback. They're making legit BMX bikes again. And the truth about Mongoose is that they weren't always that Walmart synonymous brand that, at least since I started riding, that they have been. They used to make legit BMX bikes and have real legit BMX pros riding for them the same way that they do today. Like Fuzzy Hall used to ride for them, the 80s, 90s. They made good stuff, but then there was a period of time where it seemed like it kind of fell off. And now, today, they're making bikes that are at the same level as any other complete BMX bike made by any other company, and sometimes even better with a better value. So today we're going to be taking a look at the 2022 Mongoose Complete BMX bikes, their whole lineup. There's a couple 16s, there's a 24 in here as well. Basically everything that shows up under the freestyle category on their website. We're going to be taking a look at it. So let's just start with the first 20-inch. So what we're looking at here is an Axios Pro. I don't think that this is a kid's BMX bike. So this isn't meant to be a BMX bike at all. It's an aluminum frame. It looks kind of like a race frame, so I'm not going to go super in depth on this one yet. We're going to go to the first one that looks like an actual BMX bike, and it looks like it might be this Legion L10 here. So yes, and the cool thing here that I'm seeing immediately, and this just goes to show like the thought that's put into these things, is that this has a rider height gauge on the website. 4 foot 4 inches to 5 foot even is what this is made for essentially. And what we've got here, let's scroll down to the specs. We've got a high tensile steel frame. We've got a high 10 fork, an American loose bottom bracket. You can see here from the picture that it's got an unsealed headset on it. The cranks in the picture are one piece, but the specifications say 3-piece. I'm inclined to believe that they are one piece based on the picture. The cost on this one as well, I forgot to say, is $350. The handlebars are high tensile steel as well. Headset, threadless, 1 1/8, unsealed front and rear hubs as we would expect. And then as we scroll down here, we see this chart on their website that actually has all of the different features on here with check boxes with each of their bikes, which is actually also really cool. It just shows the thought that goes into these things. I mean, other companies aren't doing this. It's got all of this thing that all the way up to the top, the Legion 500, where it's got all of the boxes checked. It's cool. Also, we've got all of the geometry on here too. Everything. I mean, we've got head tube angle, seat tube angle, horizontal top tube length, seat tube length, standover height, head tube length, chainstay length, fork offset, bottom bracket drop, wheelbase, stem length, bar width, and seat post size. All of these things that make up this bike are here. All of the information you could possibly want is right here about the bikes that they make. So if you want to know, for instance, what the offset is on the forks, you can find that. There's a lot of complete bikes that just don't give that information. There's also a video down here. So 10 out of 10 on presentation, thoughtfulness, and everything that you could want to know about a bike being present on this website. That's the Legion L10, $350 for high 10 parts on pretty much everything. What about the Legion L20? So we've got a difference here between the L40 and the L20 being a $10 difference. And actually, I just clicked into it and saw there is a model of the L40 that is priced at $380, but it is sold out. So that's not actually the next one in the lineup. It is the Legion L20, as you would expect. $40 more. This bike is made for riders 4'8" to 5'4". I love that they have that. There is a difference in tire size. The previous was 2.25. These are 2.3. What else do we have here? High 10 forks. It says 3-piece tubular chromoly cranks, which we actually do have this time. So that is going to be a difference. I'm just going off the assumption that the previous bike was a 1-piece crank. That it has a top load stem on it. That is good as well. It's more modern and better for your back. It does have the American's unsealed loose ball bottom bracket. Rims are single walled rims, as we would expect. The previous were definitely single walled as well. This has a sealed rear hub on it. That is awesome. Sealed bearing cassette, 14 millimeter axle, 36 hole. The front hub is unfortunately unsealed, but it's awesome to see that there's a sealed rear hub here. Same headset as the previous bike as well. That being said, as we said, the tires are bigger on this bike. Handlebars are a 1/2 inch wider on this bike, but they are also high tensile steel. So it's also good to see that there's these slight changes as you go up as well. A taller rider is naturally going to be bigger and have longer arms by this point, so they could need a little bit wider bars. And to go just a 1/2 inch increment is just a thoughtful thing that I really appreciate in looking at this lineup. And you guys are seeing a theme here. I mean, if you took the branding off of this bike and got rid of your preconceived notions about Mongoose, this is a pretty decent value for the money. $389 for what you get. Quick note here, the Legion L10 has a 20-inch flat top tube length, which is very, very short in terms of freestyle BMX. This is definitely made for someone who is shorter rider, 4'4" to 5 foot. The Legion L20 has a 20.25 inch top tube length, which is a little bit longer, which is where you get the difference in height at. And it's getting closer to a bike that is more suited for freestyle for an adult. So I wouldn't recommend either of these bikes for an adult trying to ride freestyle. But I don't know how many adults are buying 20-inch BMX bikes just to ride around in circles, because I don't recommend these bikes for real freestyle BMX. Now let's move on to the Legion L40. This one is actually $419. So if you go on the website, it can be a little bit deceiving in that one of them is $380, but all of the colors except for the black one are $420. Nice. So this one has a high tensile steel frame as well. Same tires as the previous. There are some differences I'm seeing here. There is a 20.5 inch top tube length, so the rider height on this one is a suggested 5 foot to 5'6". Let's move down and see what we got. We knew it was a high tensile steel frame. It says BMX freestyle geometry. Did they all say that? Yes, they did. That's interesting. High tensile steel fork, 3-piece tubular chromoly cranks. It's got a steel chainring on it, which all of the previous definitely had too. But the bottom bracket, mid-sealed bearing with the 8-spline spindle on the cranks. That's awesome. It's got a 9-tooth cassette on it, single wall rims still. Front hub, still unsealed. Rear hub, though, is sealed. What else do we get here? Where is the difference at? Same handlebars as the previous bike. When it comes to the headset on the L40, it does say threadless integrated 1/1/8 retainer bearing. This is not a sealed bearing. As we scroll down to the chart here, we see sealed integrated head bearing is not checked on this chart. So that is definitely something to take note of if you're reading this and you may get confused. It says the same thing on the L20, but it says external retainer bearing there. So there is a difference there. So for, what is it, another $30 more, you're getting the mid-bottom bracket, which is a definite improvement if you ever have to change these things. We're still not to the level of bike that I would recommend for someone who is doing like full-fledged freestyle skate park, street, trails, vert, whatever it might actually be. But for someone who's just riding around town, the Legion L10 is definitely going to be fine. But any of these other bikes are also going to be fine for that. And you could probably get away with some light riding on something like the L40, where you don't have to worry as much about your bottom bracket bearing blowing out or your headset bearings blowing up or anything like that. You do have to worry about the non-chromoly parts a bit more than if they were chromoly, but we're getting there. Let's move on to the Legion L60. So with the L60, it is a $50 difference than the previous L40. But what do we get for that difference? First of all, the top tube is also 20.5 inches, and the rider height is the same, 5 foot to 5'6" that was previously recommended. An integrated headset with a mid-bottom bracket. This one looks like it is built into the frame this time, so no cups are involved, which is a definite improvement. We've got high tensile steel forks again, 3-piece cranks, same thing. Single wall rims once again. They are different rims though, because they have a 29mm ID. I don't know the difference that might make, but front and rear hub are also the same. Again, same 2.3 inch tires, high tensile steel handlebars, but this time they have a 29 inch width with an 8.7 inch rise versus the 28 wide 8 inch rise previously. So it's got a 50 millimeter top load stem. The reach is 50 millimeters on that one. The improvements here aren't crazy. And when we scroll down here to this chart that they've got here, we see that the only upgrade over the L40 that the L60 has, as far as just pure features and specifications are involved, is the sealed integrated headset bearing. As far as checking boxes goes, the L40 may actually be a better value than the L60, depending upon how much you care about that sealed integrated headset bearing. So let's move on to the Legion L80. We are at the same price point. There's no way. Okay, so once again, we have the sale thing going on where it says a lower price with the sale price because the website's structured to show the lowest price with the way I had it sorted. So let's move on here to the L80. The top tube length on the L80 is 20.75 inches and the suggested rider height is 5'6" to 6 foot. So we are getting to a bike that is pretty much suited for most people's heights in BMX. It is a $500 complete. And what we get for that $500 even is, let's move down, chromoly front triangle, BMX freestyle geometry, integrated headset, mid bottom bracket. Fork is still high tensile steel. Cranks, still the same 3-piece tubular chromoly cranks with the same steel chainring on it. We've got the mid bottom bracket as we said. We've got single wall rims still. We've still got an unsealed front hub. We've still got that same sealed bearing cassette rear hub. Same tires. The handlebars this time are 29 inches wide with a 9-inch rise, which is actually a higher rise than the 8.7 inch on the previous bike, but the width is the same. Integrated headset. This is a sealed headset, definitely, once again. The handlebars on the L80 remain high tensile steel and 29 inches wide, just like the previous, but they are a 1/4 inch higher in rise. They're 9-inch rise versus the 8.7 inch rise of the previous bike. Same 50 millimeter reach headset. It's got an integrated headset, as we've said already. I said headset instead of stem, 50 millimeter reach stem. This time we've got a pivotal seat, a Mongoose pivotal seat. So that being said, let's scroll down to the chart here, which is very handy in doing these comparisons and see what the differences are all in one spot. So it does have chromoly in the frame and it does have a pivotal seat and seat post. So for the difference of $30, we get chromoly in the frame and pivotal on the seat. Is that a difference that is worthwhile? We will have to see when we take a look at the next bike. Real quickly here while I'm editing, I had some thoughts about this bike, being that it has a price point of $500 and in comparison to the Kink Whip, which is also $500. I feel that the Kink Whip is definitely a better value. It has all chromoly frame, fork, and handlebars, double walled rims, sealed front and rear hub, all for $500. So it's pretty much a better value as far as what you actually get for your money. And in a second, you're about to see the L100, then the L500, and both of these bikes have value that could be argued toward, which you're about to hear about. I just wanted to give that quick interlude here because I compared to the Kink later on here, but not for this exact bike, which is the exact same price point. So now we've seen the L80. Let's move up to the next price bracket with the L100 and see what we get for the L100. The suggested rider height on this one is 5'8" and up, and it has a 21-inch top tube length. Let's take a look at the bike though. Full 4130 chromoly frame. Big deal there. The price on this one is $569.99. So for that, we get the chromoly frame. We get chromoly forks with this one. We get 2-piece tubular chromoly hollow spindle cranks with a 25-tooth aluminum chainring. Bottom bracket is a mid-sealed bottom bracket, as it should be with a full chromoly frame. And it says 8-spline spindle. I'm not entirely sure if these cranks on the side that we can't fully see in the pictures are pinch bolt 8 spline, or is a pinch bolt 8 spline, but regardless, the 2-piece cranks are definitely an improvement here. What else do we have? Double walled rims. That is also a big deal here. Unfortunately, we still have an unsealed front hub, but we still have that same sealed cassette in the rear. We have bigger tires. They're 2.4 inches now. But what do we have for handlebars? Chromoly handlebars, 29 inches wide, 8.75 inches rise. So the rise is down a little bit from the L80, but a 1/4 inch here isn't something that's like make or break. But that being said, we've got a 50 millimeter reach stem on it. Same integrated headset, sealed bearing there, as you would expect. Pivotal seat and seat post, steel seat post. So all in all, I mean, this bike checks almost all of the boxes. The only box that this bike does not check for me personally, and something I would recommend, and honestly, it looks like it might be sealed, but not say sealed. Either way though, it's a female hub too, it looks like. That seems to be the only box that's not checked for me. When I recommend a complete bike, I recommend full chromoly, frame, fork, and handlebars at the least. Double wall rims are a huge bonus there because they're just way more durable, and you can ride on them much harder and for longer without having to true them or take them to the bike shop to get trued than you can single wall rims. But yeah, for $570, this thing checks all of the boxes. But how does that stack up against the gold standard in value as far as complete BMX bikes goes? In my eyes, the Kink Whip. This is the best value complete BMX bike that you can buy. It checks every single box, and it is $500. So the difference of a unsealed versus sealed front hub, a $70 difference between this and the Whip is not completely insane. There's a lot of bikes that I talked about previously and that you see out there that don't come anywhere near these two bikes for more money. So that being said, this is just a statement of Mongoose bikes really aren't that terrible of a value. You can get a better value. You can save $70 and get the Kink Whip, and if I were to have to recommend something, that would be what I would do. But I'm just saying, if you buy this Legion L100, it's pretty dang close, and the price is close as well. So let's move on. There is another bike here, the Legion L500. This bike is $650. It's got a 21-inch top tube length, so the rider recommended height is 5'8" and up. What are the differences here, though? It does have 175 millimeter cranks, which the L100 did as well. And we'll scroll down and take a look at that chart in a second. Same full chromoly frame and fork, 2-piece tubular chromoly cranks, 48 spline spindle on the cranks this time. So the previous was 8 spline with the pinch bolt, I'm assuming. That being said, that is an improvement. This has a single speed 9-tooth free coaster. I guess for the people who don't know about BMX, they would maybe want to know that it's single speed. Same double walled rims. This has a sealed front hub, so there's another improvement. It's got the free coaster, sealed bearing free coaster hub. So that could be considered an improvement or a choice that you might want over it. Same tires, same handlebars. The geometry is the same, 29 wide, 8.75 rise. Same integrated headset as we expect. Pivotal seat post, pivotal seat. So that being said, let's scroll down and see the main differences here. The boxes that aren't checked on the 100 that are checked on the 500 are the free coaster hub technology and the half-link design street chain. So interesting. This bike has a half-link on it, and it does. That's pretty cool. A lot of people like half-link chains, and those look like Odyssey twisted pedals. That's also interesting. Oh, this one is actually $700. The black one is $650. So I missed that at the beginning. Sorry about that. So when we're comparing the L500 to the L100, we have a $130 difference in price. Where does that price difference lie? Well, there's the sealed free coaster hub, there's the 48 spline cranks, there's the sealed front hub, there's also 4-piece handlebars, and I think that's the most significant difference between all of these. But let's take a look at that monetarily and value-wise. So if you were going to buy a free coaster hub and then have it built, trued, potentially have to buy new spokes, you're definitely going to be spending more than that $130 immediately. The cheapest free coaster wheel that you could buy, or free coaster hub, is probably around $100, and it just goes up from there. And I personally would never recommend buying the cheapest possible thing, because that is going to lead you to have to buy it again, because it's going to break or wear out quicker than something that is aftermarket and made for the abuse that BMX just naturally brings. So immediately buying the L100 and then upgrading the rear to a free coaster puts you over that $700 immediately. But then you take a look at the cranks. Now, 48 spline cranks are something that I would definitely, once again, not recommend buying the cheapest possible thing. You could buy $100 48 spline cranks and put them on this bike, and you would still be under that $700 price point. You'd be $30 less. But I'm never going to recommend that, because if you're going to buy something for your bike aftermarket, you should buy the best thing that you can afford that is aftermarket, potentially with a lifetime warranty on it, so you know you're getting something good. To do that, you're looking at $150 and up from there. So immediately, you're over that $130 price difference if you just buy the L100 to replace the cranks. Not saying that these cranks on the L100 are bad or junk or not going to last you for a while, but if you wanted to get to the same level that the L500 is, I don't know the level of quality of the cranks that are on this thing, but they are already 48 spline, which is a definite improvement over the L100. So if we're going to do it, we're going to do it right. Front hub is a different one here, because I feel most BMX front hubs that are sealed and female are very similar. There's just sealed bearings in there, and then the bolts that go into the aluminum axle, and there's a hub shell. There can be differences in quality and material of that hub shell, but they are very similar. So that being said, you could buy a whole new front wheel for probably around $100. It could go up from there, but this is the first time that I would say you don't absolutely have to buy the most expensive or the best possible thing that is out there for the bike. So that being said, you could buy the L100 for that, buy a new front wheel, replace it, and then you're still under that $700 price point. So the handlebars and things, I'm not even going to go in there. If you were going to do all of those things, you're immediately, you're looking at a bike that you're just better off probably buying something that is way up there. Like if you look at Kink's lineup, they have the Williams for $900. You're probably better off at looking at something like that and going a whole nother tier above what Mongoose even offers, because you're getting into money that could buy you something with like aftermarket parts on the whole bike. So all of that being said, how does that compare to something like what Kink has? Because Kink does offer completes that kind of line up in features to the L500. Let's take a look at the Cloud. The Cloud is the Switch. This bike is $600, and it does have a free coaster on it. So let's take a look at the specs on this one. There is a difference here though. So comparing the L500 to the Switch, this one has 8 spline cranks on it. So I don't feel we can fully compare these. It does have the sealed front hub. It's got a sealed free coaster on it, but it has 8 spline cranks. So they can't be fully compared here. Most of the other parts on there are about the same. I believe the main other difference that might be here is that this one does come with pegs. So this is $600, and it comes with everything but the 48 spline cranks. And we already talked about the upgrade from the 8 spline to the 48 spline, and that would put you over that $700 price point. So now that the Switch is out, let's take a look at the Cloud 2022. This is a $750 complete. Let's take a look down here. This is Travis Hughes' signature bike. So this is a signature bike for a rider, but this time we still get the 8 spline cranks on it. crazy. We get a sealed front hub, we get the sealed free coaster hub, but we still get 8 spline cranks on this bike. So I feel once again, we can't fully compare these bikes because of the cranks. These have these pinch bolt 8 spline cranks on them that are the same cranks that come on every other kink complete that has 3-piece cranks on it, other than the ones above this that do have the 48 spline cranks. So we really don't even have something that is a fair comparison here, because we take a look at the Williams. It does have the 48 spline cranks on it, but it has cinema front and rear hubs on it. These are aftermarket parts. The Corey Martinez CNC stem. It's got Foundation 2 forks. It's got the Williams bars on it. So like, it has aftermarket parts on it, and it is $200 more. So there's like a pretty significant difference here. This bike is at the top level of things. So we can't even fully compare that. So honestly, the L500 is kind of in a little bit of its own league here between the things that Kink offers and what Mongoose offers. And we could take a look at other companies, but that just shows you that they've kind of put themselves into a unique position where you could argue and justify that $700 price tag. Not to mention, I have no idea why this is, but the black version of this bike is $650. I don't know if this is a 2021 model versus a 2022 model. The bike looks exactly the same as far as the pictures go, but it's $50 less. So if you could find one, it's not in stock, it's sold out. You can actually buy this one. But if you could find the black one for $650, every single argument I've made for price and value here is even more legitimized, because it becomes even better value. So all of that being said, Mongoose offers legit BMX bikes. These things also, I forgot to mention, with the L100 and I think even the L80, and yeah, even the L80, all of these bikes from the L80 up have gyro tabs on here, so you could run a gyro on this bike. So yeah, that's the conclusion for the freestyle bikes. The value arguments could be made. You can take a look at them. There is some slight differences when you look at the lower tiers and you compare them to something that's like $500 in the whip from Kink. There's just no better value complete bike out there that is full retail price than the Kink whip. So now let's move on to talking about their other bikes, because I know people care about the 16s and the 18s and potentially bigger bikes than that. Let's take a look at this Argus MX 16. So basically, this is a high tensile steel frame with a 1-inch head tube. It's got the quill stem and all of that stuff. This is a kid's bike. It's $210 for a kid 3 to 4 foot tall. This is a beginner bike. This is something that you might see actually in Walmart. That is a subject we haven't fully talked about yet, but we will. This is the bike that a kid might start on as their first bike. A 16-inch bike for someone 3 to 4 foot. If you're not starting on a Strider, you may start on something like this. I could see people out there learning how to ride bikes on this bike. So I can't fully say anything about this. All of these parts are budget parts to bring the price down to something that makes sense to be someone's potential first bike. So let's move on from there to the Legion L16. This looks like it could be what's meant to be a little bit more legit of a 16-inch bike. It's got, once again, the high tensile steel frame, but it does have 1-piece cranks on it. It's got unsealed front and rear hubs on it, single wall rims, high 10 steel handlebars and forks. The suggested rider height is 3'6" and smaller. But when it comes to these bikes, I think, and I've said this a lot, that the quality of the material on a 16-inch bike for someone who's like really trying to learn how to ride isn't quite as vital as it is for a full-fledged adult riding a BMX bike and trying to go in the air and things of that nature, because a kid who's 3'6" and smaller is light. The amount of force and how high they would have to go to really put like crazy force on this bike is pretty significant. So I don't put as much emphasis on that for smaller bikes. And if you have a kid who's going crazy on a 16-inch bike, chances are you're not looking at Mongoose or King for a complete bike. You're looking at something, getting something aftermarket or getting a custom made, because you're probably already at the level where you know about these things. So that being said, you could confidently recommend something like this, but let's compare price wise to what Kink has. So their Carve 16-inch, look at this. Their Carve 16-inch is $400, $399. There is a pretty big difference in features there. This is like a much more like legit bike here, in that it's got 3-piece cranks on it, integrated headset, what looks like a higher quality stem on it. So we're looking at something that is like definitely worth it for that $100 jump, but we can see that that $300 price point isn't crazy here. And that's kind of the point of that I wanted to make. So let's look at the L18. I'm assuming this is going to be a similar story. 1-piece crank. It's pretty much the same bike, but an 18-inch for a rider who's the 3'8" to 4'8" height, and it's only a $20 difference in price. So these bikes, and this is the point that I wanted to make, we'll look quickly at the Axios 24 just because it comes up. So this is clearly not meant to be like a freestyle bike at all. This is like a cruiser 24-inch with an aluminum frame. So I don't think we need to look at this one for anything other than the fact that it's for riders 5'6" to 6'2", which covers a huge range, and the fact that it's $320. So this is something that you're just going to be riding around. You're not going to be you probably shouldn't be attempting tricks on it. I could see someone potentially doing it, but we're not going to talk about it for that because this isn't the scope of what this channel's about. So all of that leads me to the conclusion that I wanted to make about this from the very beginning. I don't think the hate and reputation that Mongoose has had in recent years is totally warranted in 2022, and here is why. When you take a look at something like the Argus MX-16 or the Legion L10, which are both, I'm sure, sold in Walmart, you take a look at that and you think about the bikes that people are buying for their very first bikes. Most of the time when someone's getting their first bike ever, they're not getting it from a bike shop and potentially getting a lower level complete bike that is sold there. They're going to Walmart. They're getting it from a garage sale. They're getting it handed down from an older sibling. They're not going out and getting something legit. So if you could go to Walmart and get the Mongoose MX-16 and then you see BMX on TV or you see it, you want to get into it, then you see, whoa, this company that makes the bike that I already ride also makes the 18-inch. They also make the L40, 60, like all of these bikes going up to almost the highest level you can get in a complete. You see that and you see something that creates a relationship from the rider from their very first bike ever all the way up to potentially the best complete that they may buy before they get into getting an aftermarket bike. I think it's awesome that Mongoose offers that. Hyper got the same kind of hate, and it's not exactly the same thing, but the fact that you could go to Walmart and get something like the L10, and where I first started paying attention to this was when the Mode 90 and the Mode 180 and then the Mode 540 were all sold in my local Walmart, and I saw 3-piece cranks with sealed integrated headset mid-bottom brackets in my local Walmart. That's when I started paying attention, saying, wow, like someone could accidentally end up with a Mode 540 or Mode 180 from Walmart and have a bike that they can like actually potentially try to ride and learn how to ride on just because they have it and that's what Walmart had. And I think that's pretty cool, and I think that's definitely something that we shouldn't ignore in BMX, because creating that relationship from this time that someone is a kid and being with them until they're an adult riding their bike is something really awesome. And I think what Mongoose is doing is great. I mean, for over 45 years, Mongoose has been in the dirt at the park and on the street, ranging from your first true BMX bike in the L18 to the full 4130 Chromoly Pro Performance L500. The Legion series was designed to withstand the punishment that takes place as you progress your BMX skills. They have legit BMX riders like Nikita Ducro, Pat Casey, Kevin Peraza all ride for Mongoose. That is legit. And I think that they definitely don't deserve the hate that they sometimes get. So that being said, I hope this video finds some use for you. And if it does, and you're new here or you haven't yet, I hope that you consider hitting the subscribe button down below so we can see you tomorrow for another one. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.